Good afternoon, everyone. Previously, what we have seen is, I hope my screen is visible to you guys, right? We have seen about this private, protected, and public, and how it is visible into the derived class, how we are deriving it, right? Instead of private, now onwards we are using protected because child class is not able to access my variable, right? That is why what we are doing is we are making our variable protected instead of private, right? So the child class can at least access those variables. Okay. Then we have seen this, right? Who can use your private and the protected variables? Three answers, right? One, that is a function that is friend of the class. So one function which is friend of your class, and the friend function of another class, right? They can even access your data and your member function, right? Your derived class can only use protected, not the private. This was what we have seen many of the times, right? We have seen what is multi-level inheritance, right? We have seen the example of it, right? Then the multiple inheritance that we have seen, where we would be having more than one parent class, right? This is what the syntax, right? We can use the comma to separate the two different parent classes, right? And this is how we can do this. We've also seen the ambiguity resolution in inheritance, right? If they are having the same name of the function, then how we can access it, right? If we are only writing display over there, right? So at that time, what will happen? It will give you an error. Compiler will raise an error because there is the ambiguity. Which display function I need to call, either of m or n, right? That is same into your single inheritance even, right? Where you are having display over here, and not actually the ambiguity, but it is actually every time it will call your derived class function only, right? It will hide your superclass function. So if you wish to call particularly a function which is there as your in your parent class, right, in your super class, so at that time you have to mention like this, that I want the display method, but that is of class A. So it will call your that particular class method, right? So this is up to what we have seen, right? Now the next is hierarchical inheritance. Hierarchical means one parent, many child. Okay. So this is actually the combination of, I mean, what here it is shown, that is, you can say that multi-level plus hierarchical, right? This is what you can say. So many programming problems that can be cast into the hierarchy, where certain features of one level are shared by many others below of that level. Say suppose we will say that is students. So students could choose any, I mean, art students, it could be engineering student, it could be medical students. If it is the engineering student, then it could be from mechanical, electrical, civil, computer, any of the department, right? So this will create nothing but a hierarchy kind of thing, right? This is the hierarchical inheritance. Again, another example you can say, if there would be an account, right? So it could be a saving account, it could be a current account, or it is a fixed deposit account. If it is a fixed deposit account, again it is like in a hierarchy, like short term, medium term, long term, something like that. So this will, I mean, a kind of tree you can say, right? That is your hierarchy. So in book they have not given much examples, but we will find one. Yeah, they've not given the hierarchical example, right? Because that we will refer, this hierarchical, that we will refer in our next unit in polymorphism, right? Where we would be having a concept of abstract class and a pure virtual function and all. So at that time we would be having many more examples related to this hierarchy. That is why we have skipped this. Fine. Next is the hybrid inheritance. Hybrid is what? It would be having, I mean, a multi-level and a multiple, you can say, right? This is your multi-level example, that student, then you were having that test and result class was there, right? Wherein a student, we were passing the roll number, right? This is what we have seen in our multi-level example, if you remember, right? Student roll number, then in test they would be having two subjects, subject 1, subject 2, their marks, and finally we are adding those marks over here in test, and we were displaying the result, right? So there could be situations where we need to apply two or more types of inheritance to design a program, right? Example, we have the processing the students result, like assume that we have to give the weightage for sports before finalizing the results, right? So the weightage for the sports is stored in a separate class which is called sports. So we have to add those data even over here, so marks subject 1 plus subject 2 plus sports marks, and then finally we will prepare the result. So in such kind of situation, we would be having over here multiple inheritance. You are having two parent, test and sports, right? Yes or no? Getting this thing? So I can even check my connection. Somebody will reply, right? Okay, fine. Okay, okay, fine. So here we will be having one example of hybrid. So here we will be having one example of hybrid. Fine. So here you are having one class, that is a student, that what we have seen, right? We are just adding one more class, that is sports, in this, and we are doing some minor changes, right? So this is again just a kind of revision, that here I'm having roll number, I would be having get number, put number, those methods I've defined over here outside of the class, right? Get number, put number. Then here, this is my class test, where I'm having this class test from my class student, right? Which is derived publicly. So here I'm having another two variables, subject 1, 2 and all, right? Again, I'll be having marks, get marks, put marks, such kind of things, where I'm just setting and getting my values, right? Then here, this is my new class, that is class sports, right? I'd be having in this protected way one variable float score. Again, I would be having two methods, right? Get score and put score. Either you can declare the method over here, and then you can define those method outside of the class. But here I've written directly. This is your get score. You are passing one variable, you are just setting that variable whatsoever will be provided by from your integer main, right? And you are just writing that score, right? That is put score, just see out kind of statement, that's it. Now what you are doing is your result class, right? That is from your test and sports both, right? No, so that is your multiple inheritance. You can see that same into the figure. Your result class is there from the two different classes, test and sports. Okay, so here you are having this float total, right? Display function. Now in display you did some changes, right? Here it was previously that total is equals to subject 1 plus subject 2. I have added one more, that is score. Okay. Then put number, put marks, put score. Okay. So this is what I'm doing is put number and marks was there, put score was not there, right? Because this method is from sports class. So that I have put, and then finally the total will be printed. Okay. Same, an integer main. You are creating one object of your result class, right? Here you are having student1 dot get number, get marks, and here one more line is added, that is for your sports class, right? That is get score. So that what I'm passing over here, that is 6.0, right? And then it will be added. And finally, I'm just calling one method, student1 dot display. So this display method, that will be called, total will be calculated, and all these functions will be called from this display, right? And finally we will be having result. So when we'll run this, we will be having one more data into it, that is your score, sports weightage. Fine. This is what we were having the example in the multi-level inheritance. I've added one more class. So now it is of hybrid, right? I hope it is clear. Okay. Fine. So now here, next is virtual base class. This is again the most important topic, right? In the terms of exams and all, right? Virtual base class. Now, you can see such kind of things where it is a hybrid kind of thing, right? Here you will be having a multi-level inheritance, you are having a hierarchical inheritance, and you are having multiple inheritance, isn't it? You can find this three different kind of inheritance in this figure, right? If it is like from grandparent, means one parent, two child. So that is known as hierarchical. Then if you are having two parents, parent 1, parent 2, and only one child, so that is known as multiple inheritance. And you can even see there would be three levels: grandparent, parent 1, and child. Or you can say grandparent, parent 2, and child. So that is again multi-level inheritance, right? So in that way, that is again a kind of, you can say, the hybrid, right? More than one hierarchies that you are using. But here what would be the problem? This child that will get all the characteristics, that is from parent 1 as well as from the parent 2, right? If it is only multiple inheritance, then there is no problem. Why? Because parent 1 is having their own characteristics, parent 2 is having their own functions and something like that, right? So you are getting that features from both the classes. So that is fine. Okay. But here what will happen? Parent 1 and parent 2, they both are getting the same features from the grandparent, right? So say suppose in grandparent you are having 5 variables and 5 functions, right? And it is publicly derived, right? Say suppose they all are the public one. So that features, that all the features will be there in parent 1 as well as in parent 2, right? But here the child is getting that thing actually 10 plus 10. Means means the 20, right? But they this features are the same one, right? Then also they are just getting identical copy from this two different classes. Okay, so many of the times it will happen that it will create the ambiguity, right? That identical one, if they are having, then that would be the ambiguous one, right? So what you need to do is, you want only one copy, not from the parent 1 and parent 2 both. Instead of that, either it's from parent 1 or from the parent 2, or it may happen that you are having 50 different classes and there would be only one child. So if there is a grandparent who is having 50 child, so they all 50 will be there, and from there there is only one child. So this child will get 50 identical copies of the grandparent, which I don't want. Okay. So for that, I'm having virtual base class concept. Okay. So first see what is there in theory. The grandparent is sometimes referred to as a indirect base class. This is your indirect base class. There is a dotted line. So this child is not exactly deriving from the grandparent. No, it is deriving via parent 1 or via parent 2. Okay. But ultimately, child is getting all the properties of grandparent. Fine. So child would have a duplicate sets of members inherited from the grandparent. This introduces ambiguity and it should be avoided, right? So the duplication of inherited members due to this multiple path can be avoided by making the common base class, that is known as ancestor class, right? That is your ancestor, your grandparent, grandfather class. So by making it a common base class, or you can say a virtual base class. So when a class is made as a virtual base class, C++ will take necessary care to see that only one copy of that class is inherited, regardless of how many inheritance paths exist between virtual base class and a derived class. Okay, so you are making it as your virtual base class. How you are making it, right? So then after you are having different 50 path over here, then also that will be ignored. So you won't be having 50 copies. Instead of that, you will be having only one copy, right, in your child. So you can see over here, this is your class A, right? That is your main class, grandparent class. Then your class B1, and you are writing it virtual public A. Means what? You are deriving it virtually. Okay. So if it is written like virtual public A, it means the class C will get only one copy of the A, right? It will be inherited only one copy of the A. And here you can write like this, virtual and the public, or you can change the order. You can write like public and virtual, both are the same, right? You can change the order, fine. And finally, this class C is from which two classes? From B1 and B2. So you are writing public B1 comma public B2. So these are derived as the virtual one. That is why the class C will be having only one copy. Right? So here you can take the same example, and we have made it for your virtual base class. Right? This is your virtual base class. It is derived as a virtual base class. Right? So we have considered our same example of the previous one. That is, I'm having one student class, this is my test class, this is the result class, and that is the sports class. This figure and this figure is your class A, is having minor difference if you can understand. Getting the things? Here there is no connection between student and sports directly, right? The sports is some outsider class which you are considering in your result, right? So here what I did is now from the student class only the test and sports are there, right? So you will be having a copy of the student two times via test and via sports. So you will get the problem, right? That kind of the ambiguity that from the student class you are getting all the things two times via test and via sports in result, right? Which I want to avoid. Getting the things? So here you can understand the figure now. This is your student class, grandfather. This is your test. Here is your sports, and from that you are having result class, right? Getting the things? So here we are having a virtual base class, right? This is my student class as it is, right? Nothing has been changed. Yeah, but here in the test, right? This is your class test, which is derived from the class student. And now what you are writing over here, virtual public, because you want the copy exactly at one time, right? So that is why you are writing virtual public student. Here we are having protected subject 1, subject 2, same as it is. Nothing, I'm doing the changes, right? Here also in sports, previously it was only class sports because it was outsider and it was not derived from any other class. It was only class sports, that's it, right? But here what we are doing, here we are having class sports that is from the student class. And now I'm deriving it as a virtual class, right? So the public virtual, or you can write virtual public, right? You can change the order. And here finally again I'm having score and everything that will remain same. Here also it will remain same, like class test is from the public test and the public sports. Okay. Here again that is the display method and all, right? Nothing has been changed. Nothing has been changed. The rest of the program is as it is. What was our goal is in your class result, you won't get two copies of your class student. One is via test, one is via sports, right? Instead of that, if I'm not writing virtual, maybe I'll get the error, maybe I'll not, right? If it would be having a different definition, then I won't get any kind of error, right? So that is why I have to, for avoiding that thing, I'm writing virtual. Okay. Only the changes this virtual and in your sports, right? That is now from the student, and you will get the same output. Getting this thing? Yes or no? What is virtual based class? Okay, fine, good. Now there is one concept as abstract class. Though in your reference book even they've just given one paragraph that what I have written, right? Rest of the things, I mean, if you want to make the abstract class, so how you can make it, what are the rules and regulations to make the abstract classes, it would be having at least one pure virtual function. that would be there. Such kind of things will be there in your next unit, that is polymorphism. Okay, in that we have to see this: what is virtual function, what is pure virtual function, what is the abstract class, and so on, right? So here in this unit they have said this, what is the abstract class and all. Fine, so I have included that thing over here, right? Otherwise that will be with examples and all, that will be there in our next unit, right? That is polymorphism. Fine. So what is the abstract class? Abstract class is the one which is not used to create the objects. Okay. An abstract class is designed only to act as a base class. So other classes can inherit from that class, right? That is your base class, and it will only provide you the method name, that this method should be included in your child class. So this class is only for guiding you, you can say that, right? But you cannot create any object of this class. It is a design concept in a program development, and it will provide a base upon which the other classes may be built. Right? It will just give you a blueprint kind of thing, that you have to include in your classes this many things. Right? So in the previous example, if you wish to make any of the class as an abstract class, right? So here you can make a student class as an abstract class, since it was not used to create any objects. That is why, right? So your parent class, that was a student, you can make it as an abstract class. Now you will see that what is the use of this abstract class and all. So I'll just give you one example and just answer me that what you need to write in this class method. Okay, if I'm having that class as a base class. Fine. So here there is one class named as shape class. Okay. Then there would be three different classes from this shape class. What hierarchy is this? Can anyone tell me? What kind of inheritance it is? Anyone? Okay, if you have written in the chat, I won't get. Is it multi-level? No, it is not even multi-level. It is not even multiple. Here, where is the level? There are only two levels. One is shape and one is this. That's it. No levels are like that. Here I'm saying this is your circle class, this is your rectangle class, this is your triangle class. Okay, this is what I'm saying. Fine. Yes, Pooja, correct. Yes, Viraj. This is hierarchical, right? Fine. This is your hierarchical. Yes, Shivanand, Rahul, correct. Yes, Ritesh. Fine. So here what I'm saying is you just have to write one function that is known as area. Okay, void area function would be there in those all the classes. Fine. So what you will write the formula in the circle, that is pi r square. Fine. What you will write in rectangle, that would be L into B. Fine. What you will write in triangle? Formula for your area function, right? 1 by 2 B into H, something like that, right? Base into height. What you will write over here? Chalo, tell me what you will write in the shape, because shape is your base class, right? You have to write the method, that is void area. Fine. What you will write the formula in this kind of class? Not the sides, because circle is not having the sides. So what I can write in that class? Shape, because shape will be defined. Say suppose I'm saying animal, right? And if I'll say, you just write it down, what kind of features is having with this animal. But you will ask me, na ma'am, which animal you are talking about. So animal class, once it will be defined, I mean, once I'll describe more in deep, right? There would be two kind of thing into the inheritance. One is the specialization and one is the generalization. When you will go deep into the multi-level, right, you will get the specialized classes. And when you will go from down to up, you will get the generalized classes. Yes or no? If I'll say mammals would be there, that is a part of the animal, then I'll be having a kind of mammal in the next hierarchy, right? Then I would be having the next hierarchy, something like that. So when I'll go deeper and deeper, I'll get the specialized classes, right? And when I'll go from that particular mammal to the upside, right, bottom to up, I'll get more generalized way. Okay, they are the animals. That's it, right? No, but what I need to write? Yes, area function will be there. Every class is having a area function, but what formula I need to write? We can just write a function. Yes, Rahul, because we don't have formula, na. I haven't said that which shape you need to draw, right? So many of the times, I think almost all the times, right, you will be having such kind of base classes where you don't have to, I mean, you don't have that kind of statements to write into the function, right? So whether I'll write the void area function over here, right? Say suppose void area function, I've written that for the shape, right? I don't have anything to write. So I'll simply write like C out here. The shape will be defined later on, right? Such kind of things I can write. Otherwise, I don't have anything to write over here. So, whatsoever I'm writing inside this void area, that is just waste of the time. I mean, if you are not writing, then also it is fine. And if you are writing, then also it's fine, right? But useful statements I don't have. Once my shape has been defined, okay, when I'll say you have to find the area of the circle. So if I'm specifying that thing circle, then and only then you will be able to write the formula related to circle and you are able to find the area. Otherwise, when I'll say you have to find the area of the shape, so you will ask me that, no ma'am, which shape you want? About the rectangle, you want the area related to triangle, what you want? Because shape means what? Shape is not any kind of shape, right? So such kind of statements where I'm not having any useful things, yeah, but I can direct to my child classes, like you should have to write one method, that is area, into your class. That is compulsory one. If you will not write, you will get an error. Such kind of things I can do with the abstract classes. This is what I'll do in my next unit. Getting the things, but right now just few lines will create the confusion in your mind that, ma'am, what is the use of this abstract class? That is why I'm specifying this, right? Getting the things, what I'm saying is, right? right? Many
Yes,
of the times in your base class, there is nothing to write in your function. So at that time, you are just writing your function, you are just declaring your function, semicolon, and that's it. So I'll simply write void area, semicolon. But now, whatsoever the child will be there who will inherit my properties as a base class, right? They compulsory have to write this method void area. If they will not write, then they will get the error. It is something like that. Your parent is giving you the property, right? But on one condition that you have to spend or you have to expand your business, something like this. So based on the parent's condition, the child will behave. Right? So that kind of restrictions and something I can put into the abstract class. Otherwise, what will happen? The parent will give all the property to the child, right? And the child won't do anything up to the expectation of the parent, right? He is not expanding the business, he is not expanding this and that, and he is wasting the money, something like that. So, one kind of limitation or one kind of control on the child that the parent is having via this abstract class. Getting with the real time example and with the this technical example, right? Okay. So the next is, okay, fine. So it is a design concept, right? We have finished this. Sorry. So here, constructors in the derived classes. Have you observed that whatsoever the programs we have seen, you will never find the constructor in your parent class, even in your base class. Have you seen? We have directly taken the functions. Okay, in your base class, even in your child class, you have only used the functions over here. You haven't used your constructors. So that concept is now we are having. Okay. So how we can write the constructor into the derived class? So the as long as no base class constructor take any argument, the derived class need not have a constructor function, right? You don't have to write the constructor if your base class is not having the constructor, fine. But if your base class is having a constructor with one or more argument, then it is mandatory for the derived class to have a constructor and pass the argument to the base class constructor, right? Okay, one simple question. Whenever you are creating any of the hierarchy in this via this inheritance, right? You will be having two classes, three classes, four classes, but generally you are creating the object of which class? Generally you are creating the object of which class? That is your child class. Yes, richest class, that would be your child. Yes, correct, right? So whatsoever your last class, whatsoever is your child class, the latest class, right? That classes object you will create, and whenever you will create the object, at that time only the constructor will be called. This is what we have learned, right? So say suppose there is a constructor with your base class, that is for example your student class, right? Student class is having one constructor, but you are not creating any object of the student class, you are creating the object of result class, which is your last class, right? So how you will give the values to your base class, and how you will call the base class constructor from the derived class, and how you will manage this stuff? Okay, that is the question, because you are not creating your parent class object, and whenever you will create the object, then and only then the constructor will be called, otherwise not, right? So how that thing will happen, that I don't have to create the object of parent class, I'll still create object of my child class only, but from the child I'll somehow call my constructors of the parent class. Okay, so that thing we are doing over here. So here, however, if any base class will contain the constructor with one or more argument, then it is mandatory for the derived class to have a constructor and pass the arguments to the base class constructor. Remember, while applying inheritance, we usually create objects using the derived class, right? So it makes sense for the derived class to pass the arguments to the base class constructor. When both the derived and base classes contain the constructor, the base constructor is executed first and then only the constructor in the derived class will be executed. Say suppose you are only creating the derived class object. When you are creating object, your constructor will be called. Now from your constructor only your parent class's constructor will be called. So you will be having a question in a mind that ma'am, in which order these constructors will be executed. So always remember that first is your father and then you, right? This is what the hierarchy is. So always first the parent classes constructor will be executed and then and only then the derived classes constructor will be executed. This is only the order. Now you will be having a question, ma'am, if it is multiple, so you will be having more than one parent, say suppose five parents on the same hierarchy. Then which parent's constructor will be called first? You will be having a question in your mind, no? If it is one parent, then it is fine. One parent, one child, first parent, then child. Okay. Multi-level, first is your grandfather, then your father, and then it's you. Right? That would be the order. But what will be there if I am having multiple? Because all the parents are on the same level, no? Then first mom or first dad. So how you are deriving your class whenever you are writing your multiple, right? Whenever you are deriving, you are writing first your class m and then your class n. So first you have written class m, so first classes m's constructor will be called, then n, then something else, right? So in that order it will be executed. So in the case of multiple inheritance, the base class are constructed in the order in which they appear in the declaration of the derived class, right? That is only the answer. Here say suppose again we will see the multiple quickly, right? Here this is your multiple. Here you have derived your class P colon. You have written first what? Class M and then class N. Though they are on the same level, you can even write first over here N and then M. That is up to you, right? So if you have written first M, so the class M's constructor will be called. If you have written N, so class N's constructor will be called, right? So how, when you are declaring your derived class at that time, how you are writing based on that, that constructors will be called. In multi-level, you know how, what is the order of inheritance. So in that way it will be called. So here derived class is taking the responsibility of supplying initial values to your base class. So how the derived class will do that job? How it will do that? So a constructor of a derived class will receive entire list of the values as its argument, right? All the arguments, all the list of all the variables, it would be there with your derived class constructor, and it will pass them on the base constructor in order in which they are declared in the derived class. This is the syntax and this is the example that how you can derive your constructor or how you can call that constructor. This is the form. This is your derived class constructor. So you can write over here the class name of your derived class. Say suppose that is D. D is your derived class. Okay. So I'm writing over here D. Fine. Then argument list 1, 2, 3 and so on. And finally you will be having your class, right? Your derived class constructor, which will be having its own argument. Fine. And then body of the derived constructor. This is how it will be called. So this is your derived class constructor, that is D. Here you are having integer a1, integer a2, which is actually the variables of your class A. This is what I have taken the example for your multiple inheritance, right? So you are having two parent A and B, okay, mom and dad. So here A1, A2 is variable of your class A. Plot B1, B2, they are the variables of your class B. And finally, I'm writing integer D1, which is, you can say, your child class, its own variable, right? If we'll talk about, again, this hierarchy, student. Student class was having integer roll number, right? Test class was having two variables, subject 1, subject 2. Sports class were having one variable, that is score. Result class was having its own variable, that is result, or you can say float total, right? So here we will not consider this right now. We are only talking about the multiple right now. So you can say that you are having total four variables, which for subject 1, subject 2, score and total. Okay. This is how you are having. So the last variable total, that is the result class variable only, right? No? Fine. So that is how we are writing the constructor. Okay. Then what you are doing is you are taking all the arguments. Here they are having five arguments, two for one class, again two for one class, and the fifth one, that is of its own class. Okay. Then you are having colon. Yes. Yes. Right. So here you are having colon, means you are calling at the same time your base classes constructor via the comma. So here first class A of A1, A2, comma, B of B1, B2, and like that. But you have to give the argument in that order only. If you want to call first your B class constructor, right? So at that time, what you need to do is you have to write over here B first and their variable first, means plot B1, plot B2, then integer A1, then integer A2, and then integer D1. This is how you need to write the variables. Okay. And finally, what I used to do into my constructor, it is having one variable D, and D is equals to D1. Right. This is what I am doing for my constructor. So here A1, A2, that will invoke a base constructor of A, and B, that is B1 comma B2, invoke another base constructor of, that is class B. And the constructor D, that will supply the value for this four arguments. In addition, it has one argument of its own, right? So total five arguments with the constructor D. So D may be invoked like, because D is my child class, my richest class, and I'll create the object of my class D. So I'm writing D object D, right? And I'll call like this 5, 12, 2.5, 7.54, and the 30. So the value will be assigned like this: 5 to your A1, 12 to your A2, and so and so. This is how the constructor will work in your derived class, right? The rest of the things that we will do in our next lecture, we'll see one of base class constructor will be called at the first, and then your child class constructor will be called, and so, right? So one or two programs we'll see related to that. Okay. So I hope all is clear to you guys. Everything is clear. Fine. Okay. Great. Fine. So please write it down your enrollment number.